All right, so before we get too far into all of this, I need us to understand a foundational piece of this puzzle before I break it down, okay? Here's the big piece I need you to get. When a person believes in Jesus, okay, a person puts their trust in the gospel, there is a great exchange that occurs, okay? It's called substitutionary atonement is the theological term. And basically what that means, okay, is that Christ's life has been substituted for your life. And because the penalty for sin is death, Christ substituted his life in the flesh and took upon himself the most horrific beating and death like what is deserved in the context of sin, even though he had no sin, and then extends to you his life. There's a substitute. Okay, I explained it to my daughter who was a volleyball player this week. I was like, all right, it's like this. Your team sucks. You suck. But then you have a great player on your team. That player gets subbed in for somebody who sucks. And all of a sudden, y'all start winning because that person is playing perfectly, complete perfection. And y'all win the game. Since you're on the team, even though you sucked, you get that win. You know what I'm saying? This is what happens. And so we get new identity. We get the victory because, and if you want to take this analogy even further, what do all great players do? All great players make the players around them better. And so you're not just the whack player that you were prior to Christ being on your team. Now that Christ is on your team, all of a sudden you getting better too. Oh, geez, I could play all day. I could do this. Okay, I get excited about it. But so this is what happens. And then the progressive growth that we all experience is something called progressive sanctification. Meaning like when you get that rebirth, okay, when that substitution happens, there's another theological term called regeneration that occurs. That is basically something that was dead becomes alive inside of you. It's this new life that occurs. And when that new life occurs, just like all new life, that new life grows. It doesn't just turn on and exist. It grows, right? And so some of you, you're like, yo, I had like new life about 3 years ago. And but, you know, I really wanted to be this person. I'm not quite there yet. That's fine. You're 3 years old. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. We're going to get there, right? And that process is called progressive sanctification. I say all of this to you because the context in which Peter is writing this is within the understanding that if a person trusts in Jesus, something changes. Hear me, okay? You got to understand that. So if you're in here and you're just like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just like, I do the church thing, whatever. Like, it is what it is. Like, it's cool. But nothing's changed. We're not talking about the same thing, okay? Depending on when it happens in your life and what your life was like before this and all of that needs to be taken into consideration when you start thinking about that change. But the point is that change that God does will be seen and noticed as evidence of a transformed life. Again, you might not remember the moment that it happened, but there is a difference between the way that you operate and the world operates. And it might be seen in your attitudes or your convictions or your motivations or your habits or your pursuits or who you spend time with or what you spend your time doing. But nonetheless, right? When this occurs in the human soul and what is dead comes alive, that life begins to take on a different path, okay? Now, it's going to look different for everybody. You know, you grew up in my home and you find Jesus at 8 years old and you're a pastor's kid. It's going to look different than somebody who's like 30, never was in a church before and comes to find Jesus. Like, it's going to look different. Okay, not everybody's journey is going to look identical. It's going to look different. The point isn't how drastic of a change it is. The point is that there will be change. All right. Now, the thing I need us to see is that this entire text assumes that something in your life characterizes you, marks you as a follower of Jesus. That's the assumption. You need to hear that loud and clear. That there's something in your life that marks you or associates you as a follower of Jesus. I'm not talking about wearing a cross around your neck or a tattoo on your arm or shoulder or whatever like that. I'm not talking about your cars in the parking lot of a church. I'm talking about the output, not the input, the output. Something in your life, your character, your conduct, your behavior, your integrity, something stands out as a little different, if not a lot different than everything around me, okay? And it might be evident in the things that we say or the things that we don't say. It might be evidence in the things that we do or the things that we don't do. It could be evident in how we talk or what we say or what we don't say or how we love people or how we forgive people or how we deal with our enemies. It might be in how we view our money, how we spend our money. It might be seen in how we value marriage or how we engage with sex or handle power or success or failure or sickness. But there's something in the life of a believer. It could be 1,000 different ways that it could be seen, but something is different. And this is the truth about the first century church. The first century church followers of Jesus, this was absolutely what marked them. They were not marked because they were walking around with like a Jesus flag. They get killed for that. There was something in their conduct, something about them that labeled them aliens in a foreign land or representatives of a different kingdom. And so when you read ancient history, okay, when you read ancient history, it's pretty clear that within the Roman Empire, typically the view of Christians was this. Ready? They're boring, they're dull, they're prude, they're killjoys. They basically try to avoid any type of fun or pleasure. Now, I don't believe that was true about them, just as much as I don't believe that that's true about us. But that was perception, right? Perception isn't always reality, but perception is still perception, okay? Why was that the case? Why were they viewed this way? Well, during the first century, most Roman entertainment consisted of things like gladiators who fought until a limb fell off or fought into the death, or plays and performances were usually either super vulgar or super sexual or super violent. They avoided gatherings. Christians would avoid these types of gatherings. A lot of their festivals that they had, you look up almost any festival of some sort, parade that we would call it today, or like some sort of like festivity that went on in ancient Rome. It was unbelievably crazy, right? I mean, crazy. I mean, think Mardi Gras times 10. Like Mardi Gras is like what the Christians do, like Mardi Gras is not, like the Romans were having out for it. They were having a good time. It was way different, right? Everything was marked by alcohol and sex and just the most massive forms of debauchery that you could possibly think of. And so the followers of Jesus, what they would do is they didn't find themselves engaging in these environments. And so they're against violence. You killed our Savior. We're not for killing. You know what I'm saying? They stood for biblical sexuality, right? Where sex is between a husband and a wife who's come together with a covenant relationship for eternity till death do us part. And then we're not even apart because even in heaven we're going to know each other, but we're covenanted to one another, right? They avoided gatherings where it was all about just getting wasted and hookups and building an identity on money or expensive clothing. That was not their scene. And that type of attitude stood against traditional Roman customs, which gave Christians then the reputation of kind of being traitors of the Roman way or the Roman life. Sounds a little familiar, okay? It's not very different than what we experience today, where followers of Jesus will at times find themselves avoiding certain environments, avoiding certain behaviors, not because we don't like having a good time, but because we believe that Jesus came to give us new life.